Do you know that the oldest language in the world is Ge'ez? Hence, the oldest civilization is Ethiopia. Do you know that their calendar consists of 5,500 years of before Common Era and 2,016 years of Common Era, adds up to 7,516 years altogether? So, in other words, the original civilization began 7,516 years ago. Then the civilization of Egypt started 6,000 years ago. Then the descendants of Egypt became royals in Europe. Europe itself is named after a black goddess called Europa. And the descendants of Cleopatra were the ones who were ruling Europe. So let's read. And respecting Zion, it will be said, each and every one was born in her, and the Most High himself will firmly establish her. Remember, we are all from Ethiopia, and Egyptians were referred to as disobedient Ethiopians because Egypt itself was called the granddaughter of Ethiopia. Where else was Ethiopians?
Go out among the people, become strong leaders. These inscriptions are not mere marks on stone, but a testament to the ancient Axumites' presence and influence in South America. Through the language of their homeland, still used in Ethiopian Bibles today, they left messages and symbols that link the highlands of Ethiopia to the forests and mountains of the Americas. This epigraphic evidence from the golden sheets, bearing pyramids to stone tablets inscribed with sacred symbols and directives, reveals a story of exploration, connection, and influence that predates the voyages we've long held as the discovery of the New World.
In other words, Ethiopia was first, and since we all from Zion, that means we are all Ethiopians, just like the Most High.
He became emperor on November 2nd, 1930, and was crowned Haile Selassie I, King of Kings, King of Zion, conquering lion of the seed of Judah.
He's going to conquer the seeds of Judah. Hence, he's going to conquer Judaism for all their lies. And he's going to conquer Europe for doing this.
That of Pope Eugene, who gave Prince Henry the Navigator permission to enslave the people of the book. Elizabeth's seamen were eager to partake in the wealth enjoyed by the Portuguese and Spanish slavers by permission of the Queen. One such privateer was John Hawkins, whose good ship Jesus of Lubeck was by no means the first slave ship to visit the shores of Africa, as some claim, but compared to the Portuguese and Spanish, they were late in the game.
Why? Because the entire European monarchy are related to each other. Now we're going to soon find out that they were all blacks who started having kids with whites. Just like this. Did you know?
Well.
They have supposed kids.
It appears that Big Mike has been hiding something from the American people.
Just like Europe has been hiding the fact that their monarchy was black, and they were the ones enslaving blacks from the continent of Ethiopia. Same storyline, you just try to cover it up. Well, Michelle is a Mike.
According to these records that some people dug up, Big Mike was registered from 96 to 2000 as a male. But that's it.
So don't forget, they were black. Hello, look at the timeline.
King Henry VIII was like an African king in England.
So King Henry VIII of England is like an African king. So between 1501 and 1867, nearly 30 million African people were kidnapped, forced into European and American ships. So according to them, from 1526 to 1867 was the transatlantic slave trade. So the storyline goes, right after the Moors lost control of Europe, then the transatlantic slave trade happened. So look at the medieval times, because that's when they were saying blacks were controlling Europe. So between 1400 to 1450, from 476, for approximately 1,000 years, they were controlling Europe. So the storyline goes, after they got out of control or lost control of Europe, the slave trade happened, when in fact they were the ones partaking in the slave trade. Look, two cousins right here. So during the medieval times, those were the people controlling Europa, otherwise known as Europe. So look at the date. 1491 to 1547. Who? Henry VIII. And we just saw that Henry VIII is black. Even though this is a painting, they all know they were black. So they're covering up the fact that the European monarchy were blacks, and they were the ones who were partaking in the slave trade.
The hidden truth.
In 1565, Queen Mary married her cousin, a black Scottish man of the royal family called Henry Lloyd Darnley. He was killed in 1567. Henry gave Queen Mary an heir before he died. Queen Mary's son James was born a few months before his father's murder. In 1597, Prince James wrote a book about demonology which described the acts of demon werewolves and vampires and how they should be prosecuted under the Christian law. Prince James was obsessed with witches who he believed acted in groups and were hell-bent on murdering him. This have led to hundreds of witches being put to death.
So in other words, he was there and he was black. Who else was black?
Noticing a pattern here. Have you noticed that these upscale statues just coincidentally always have the nose blown off or destroyed? Have you ever noticed that or wondered why? It's to cover up the heritage of that person. You see, in history, a lot of characters were whitewashed in order to promote a specific agenda. You see, for this is a black man. That was a statue of King Charles II. In history, Wikipedia, everybody's going to show you that this is a white man, but in...
Notice the date, 1630 to 1685 was King Charles, who was named after the current king. Why? Because the current king is the 88th descendant of Cleopatra. So they're all descendants of ancient Egypt. So King Charles was black. So the King Charles of today, his forefathers were black.
In fact, he is a black man, and I got proof. Right? The word steward, if you didn't know, comes from the Old Norse root spark, which means black. Steward in the word spark is the same meaning. It means black. And if you ever heard the term swarthy, it also means black too. This is the description of what Ben Franklin gave to King Charles when he was writing about him. We all know how they like to whitewash history. I mean, case in point, Jesus. He was black, and they try to give you a white Jesus. What is it? Borgio? If you go to England, there's a lot of pubs called the Black Boy, which is nicknamed after King Charles. He was nicknamed, coined the phrase from his mother, from his darkness of his skin. Ronald Hutton wrote a book about Charles called Charles II, King of England, Scotland, and Ireland. It gives a description of what Charles's mom gave to him, right? With his swarthy complexion, which is black skin, his great height, he was real tall, he was 6'2", black man. But he had a dark, full-fleshed face, and that would remain his three principal physical characteristics throughout his life. In the memoirs of the Secret Service of John Mackey, it gives a description of Charles Lenos, one of the sons of King Charles. His son is described as well-shaped, black complexion, much like King Charles. So he was black just like his daddy. And just like his other son, George Fitzroy, Duke of Northumberland, he was described as a man of honor, tall and black, just like his daddy.
So remember, slavery started from 1619 to 2019. Some would say it started in the 1500s. So as we clearly seeing, from the 16th century to the 17th century, they were black people running the same places that were partaking in the transatlantic slave trade.
When you realize that European names are actually black people's names that were stolen.
It's not stolen, it's just a continuation. They just intermingle and started having more children with the whites. Hello.
The more
Moorish Empire ruled for 711 years of dominance. The Moors were looking to replicate New Egypt globally. They started to procreate with the Slavs, which were trafficked women bought by to them as concubines. They ended up having bastard children with them, which was forbidden in the Brotherhood. They believed the purity of the blood could maintain the reincarnation of the ascended masters.
Why? Because they're from ancient Egypt. So they believe in that resurrection and all that ancient Egyptian pagan stuff.
As this practice of blood mixing spread all over Europe, many of these barons had fractioned territorial leadership in houses just like Game of Thrones is shown. Many of them didn't bear any sons within their marriage, so they used their bastard sons they had with the Slavs to pass down the leadership. As this practice became more popular, many of these new barons' houses choose their mother's side instead, due to the harsh treatment of the Moors. It was practice such as this that gave birth to Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad Dracula.
Hello, we need to start waking up. History is a lie.
How were three sons of King Charles II described during the Jacobite uprisings? From the Memoirs of the Secret Services of John Mackay, Esquire, published in 1733. First off, at page 36, we have described Charles Lennos, Duke of Richmond, his son to King Charles II by the Duchess of Portsmouth. This is the depiction Wikipedia and most modern history books show us. Now let's read how he was described. Quote, "He is a gentleman good-natured to a fault, very well bred, and hath many valuable things in him. Is an enemy to business, very credulous, well-shaped, black complexion, much like King..."
So why are we giving credit and acting like they're down with us? In reality, they are our enemies. So we was giving credit, but hello.
I see you come far from grace. Whoa, see, I try to meet the light. I am the key. Right, everything to come from me, my destiny fully decree. Say them no scheme maliciously. Why speaking so highly of me? No one suspect them an enemy.